Yeah, that was earlier today during Business Morning. Let's look at that threat to food security. The latest report from the International Rescue Committee, the IRC, and its partners shows that around 16% of Nigerians will face severe food insecurity or hunger between June, that's next month, and August this year. Well, the figure for 2024 is higher when compared to the report for 2023 and denotes the increasing spate of hunger and the worsening living condition across not just Nigeria, but West and Central Africa. Let's take a closer look at this with the Managing Director of Banjoko Motunde Farms Limited, Mr. Tunde Banjoko. Mr. Banjoko, good afternoon. Another worrying number coming, but perhaps we can escape this.
Yes, we can. If we do what is required of us as a nation and even as a continent, it's possible it will not be as severe as projected. By response.
Yeah, but it's just next month. What can we do? It's less than a month. They say 16% from June.
16%. You look at what are we talking about? The insecurities are, hindering people from pushing food, even from where they seemingly have some to where it is needed. So if we can still work around security in those areas, like they pointed out in the Northeast, in the Northwest, and a particular attention was mentioned about Sokoto and Zamfara in Nigeria. So if we are able to work around the security of those areas in Nigeria, we are likely to reduce the effects. And interestingly to me, if you look at the report that was shared some days back by Nigerians themselves, the Nigerian National Food Consumption and Macronutrients was telling us some days ago that we will have about 21% of Nigerians that are food secure. That's our own internal information, not even an international body now, telling us that even internally we are saying only 21% of Nigerians are food secure, 59% moderately, 20% are in acute hunger. So meaning these two information are aligning and calling our attention to something. So for us to avert this, I think we'll start seeing if there's possibility to push out anything from our reserve to those areas that have been pointed out to us. Maybe that would be my advice to the government at this time. Let's push out food from our reserve to those areas that are, and it says even 15% of our children are already suffering malnutrition. 15%. And like you rightly said in your opening statement, looking at this comment, it shows that as at this time last year, we're talking about 25 million Nigerians going through acute hunger in this lean period. But now we are talking about 32 million Nigerians. So meaning, what have we done, even as a nation, between last year and this year, to avert something similar that we are seeing now? Meaning, if we don't do anything, probably it might be worse next year if nothing is done. But like I said, I think we should move food from our reserve. I think the government have done that one or two occasions, but we don't know how effective this has been, moving food from the reserve, grains especially, to those areas where it is. I think there should be effective monitoring of those movements now to avert this situation.
Mr. Banjoko, when you say move food from our reserve, the first thing that comes to my mind is, what's even in that reserve? Because remember that, consequent to the removal of subsidy and all of the cries and all of that, there was a directive from the president for some grains to be given out. So, I don't know what's left in that reserve if we're to go there. So, I think we should just look at how to produce. And from what I hear you say, insecurity is a major one. But even apart from insecurity, that, of course, is not something that should be underestimated in any way. But even apart from that, in the southern parts where you don't have perhaps not that much insecurity as you have in the north, do you have the seedlings, the quality of the seedlings? Do you have the equipment to do mechanized farming that could give you bulk production? I guess these are the other areas also, even if those are not so long term.
I think, the National Food Consumption Report that I mentioned earlier while they were doing their research, they said some people told them that for 7 days, they've not had anything on them to be able to buy food. So this is talking about the economic effects now. So people are not financially empowered to even buy the basic things. So if a Nigerian is saying for 7 days, they've not been able to lay their hand on anything to be able to buy food. So we should be talking about our living conditions now. We look at the effect of some of the policies, the Naira, the valuation, the liberation of the forex market, the effect of even the oil that was deregulated, the petroleum, the subsidy that was removed last year, meaning some people are barely having, I look at it recently, so-called minimum wage of 30,000. Can we feed an individual, not to call family of 4, family of 5? So for us to be able to do this, then we can also look at the economic direction of reversing any policy that can be reversed so that people are empowered to be able to buy and purchase the basic things, items. I don't want to start giving numbers of, is it rice, is it beans, is it yam? So if we can quickly look at some of our economic policies in the next few days. Of course, just a few days ago, another tax was brought, for deposit of online transfer. Further taxation or policies that are just impoverishing the citizens will push more people into these buckets. And, you look at this report, it was telling us, as at last year, all over this sub-region, our inflation average was 18%. This says about 21%, and some African countries are doing about 54% inflation. So we need to start looking at the financial aspect of this, our economic policies. I think that's also one major area, because like you rightly said, in the Southwest, we are relatively okay, but people are not empowered financially. The policies have not empowered people to be able to make any reasonable purchase. So we should start looking in that direction, not just about bootstrap yourself, but people are now bootstrapping themselves into hunger.
Mr. Banjoko, that reminds me of our last conversation when you talk about empowering people. We did talk about getting the managing director of the Bank of Agriculture, and I know we've been talking about that. And he says, well, it has to go through some protocols before he can come on air. But that's also it. When you talk about empowering people to get on the farm, the Bank of Agriculture is supposed to be top on that, but it doesn't seem that we're getting a whole lot from that area. The end is your friend. You might as well speak for him, Mr. Banjoko.
What I would say to that is, I think I was still chatting some of them at the Ministry of Agri last week, the Federal Ministry of Agri, to say that the communication from that ministry has been very poor. In the last couple of years, it's been very poor. Now we are talking about food security. We are expecting a minister that will be going around with shirts folded from one area to another, seeing the work. This is not the time for meeting. And, I'm sorry to say, we also looked at the budget for 2024. We are still having some capital expenditure on buildings when we have not empowered our farmers. We look at this lean period. Why are we talking about lean period? It's because we have not produced enough. We have not produced enough as a nation. Let's leave the one going to waste. We know we still have issues with storage. We have issues with processing. But I think we should start from the basic one, which is production. So the Bank of Agri has to come online. They have to come active. The Federal Ministry of Agri has to come alive now. And I think we need to stop politicizing food. Food is a crucial thing. But it's a pity I see it as still being politicized in Nigeria. So even let's leave the federal. Now let's move to the states. How are the states prioritizing it? Last year, we were looking at the budget for most of these states in agri. Some of them have less than 1% allocated to agriculture. Less than 1%. Maybe about 2 or 3 states add something in 2-3%. And of course, at the federal level, we're also talking about 1.5%. So those are the reasons we have to keep looking at these numbers we are allocating and look at how we can effectively manage our fund in this direction. If not, these numbers are likely to keep going up. And of course, the more, the report also talk about how people will have to keep moving from one location to another, just looking for survival, looking at the effect on crime rates. So I think we should place more priority on food. It should be prioritized, like the president said, food security. I think I've not seen the body language following that statement. We should actually have all our actions and words aligning at this time. That would be my thought on that.
And don't forget, we still have that state of emergency declaration on food security in the country.
But it's not treated as an emergency, until you look at the individual numbers of, okay, how much is a bag of rice, how much is a bag of beans. We used to think Gary is for the common man before now, but now even a bag of Gary is getting close to over 30,000 naira thereabout. So meaning even to buy the Gary is not as cheap as we thought. And so we are talking of malnutrition, we are talking of several states. And like I said earlier on, even the numbers telling us only 21% can tell us as a nation can afford their basic needs when it comes to food. Those are worrisome figures. Those are worrisome figures that I'm wondering how our leaders are sleeping. And, the spending we see and what we read about how our national funds have been managed. So I think we have to, like I said the other time, prioritize how we can recapitalize Bank of Agric, get the ministry communicating with people, get our farmers empowered financially, get them secure, let them have the confidence, and then let's focus on production. If not, these numbers are likely to increase and soon might not be as palatable as we think. And we all have to get involved. Both the private sector and the government institutions saddled with these responsibilities need to come. We need to all just sit up at this time.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, obviously, Mr. Banjoko, thank you so much. And as you noted right there, the threat of insecurity is very closely related to food security in the country. But thank you, the Managing Director, Banjoko Motunde Farms Limited, Mr. Tunde Banjoko.
Thank you for having me.
Let's take a break now. After the break, we'll head to the market. And Mr. Banjoko talked about Gary. Do you know that year on year, the price of Gary has gone up about 122%? We'll discuss that later on the program. Stay with us.